We all know the sheer panic that sets in when you realise that you're running late for something, be it a meeting, a social encounter, or just to get down to the local corner shop to grab a questionable ham roll before it closes. The concept of time being against you is truly terrifying, because no matter how hard you try, the tick-tock of time will always get the better of you. Oh god, I don't want to have an existential crisis right now, but oh god, maybe we should take a step back from the mounting existential crisis that I've just invoked, and maybe take some time to play some video games. You know, carve out a piece of your life clock to escape for a bit into the world of fantasy and digital delight. Well, I hate to break it to you, but video game developers are very aware of this mounting fear of the countdown clock and have in numerous forms used the notion of time itself to challenge the player. Whether through timed boss battles, games that run within a time loop, or simply eating so much of your personal life that it becomes impossible to escape, video games can definitely be great experiences, but not all are fun times. With this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 video games that use time itself against you. Number 8, XCOM 2. Oh, XCOM 2, you glorious bastard. Somehow you managed to take an already winning formula that was present in the original series and dial the tension up to 11. For you see, not only did you have to tackle extremely challenging enemies who rival you in tactical skill and outclass you in terms of firepower, but now you had to do so with a time limit. Not content with letting players hunker down and work the averages and percentages to their favor, the Firaxis dev team decided that for XCOM 2, they were going to instill objectives that forced players up the map and into dangerous territory. After 2 or 3 turns, you might lose precious resources or intel, or even let key figures escape unless you push deep into dangerous areas. It made picking your cover even more essential than it was before, and put an even greater fear in players of losing precious teammates. From a gameplay perspective, this made the entire experience feel more desperate and genuinely tense, but from a player's perspective, we were all crying out, "Are you goddamn kidding me?" Number 7, the Dead Rising franchise. If there's one thing that the Dead Rising franchise makes very clear, outside the fact that there are many zombies to kill, it's that time is never going to be on your side. From start to finish, each Dead Rising franchise entry, with the exception of the awful Dead Rising 4, begins with telling you just how much time you have before the hero is either rescued or the case will expire. And it's not just a case of waiting it out in the food aisle and hoping for the best. There are survivors, psychopaths, and Zombrex packs to find, meaning that it's not just you versus 53,594 zombies, it's you against time itself. With a perfect run, you'll be able to rescue all of the stranded survivors, defeat all of those who have lost their minds, and come out on top. But when something goes wrong, it's kind of like a house of cards falling down. You'll suddenly curse the lost time, be in the wrong places at the wrong time, and even miss out on secrets just because you were caught in a flood of dead bodies. For a supposed comedy-centric series, it does get pretty intense. Number 6, Superman 64. To begin with, what an utter skip fire of a game this was. From its abysmal graphics to its even uglier gameplay, there was nothing super about this man who flew like a steel rod had been pushed into his fortress of solitude, and yet many would actually be saved playing this terrible experience thanks to the fact that the opening salvo of requirements was so bloody difficult. Superman is tasked with flying through rings in order to impress his bold buddy mate Lex. However, should you miss even a few of these hoops, he'll call you a big red and blue bellend before resetting the awful experience once more. There simply isn't enough time to navigate the hoops properly, and it became such a source of frustration that this opening section is now infamous amongst the gaming community. However, things got even worse if you do manage to navigate the rings, because suddenly you're tasked with stopping a car with only seconds to do so. This one scenario is the worst use of a time-based challenge that I've ever seen, not even giving players a moment of respite to get their bearings. And what happens if you fail? You guessed it, it's back to the start of the game and back to those bloody rings. Number 5, Final Fantasy VII Emerald Weapon. Of all the time-based boss battles out there, the words Emerald Weapon are likely to conjure a ton of conflicting emotions within players. You see, while there were many time limit takedowns that I could have chosen for this list, Emerald Weapon stands out as being one of the most brutal and likely formative experiences for many gamers. Encountered underwater in Final Fantasy VII, this behemoth of a boss is a challenge from start to finish, thanks in part to its ludicrous 1 million hit points, high defenses, and ability to knock out damage equal to how much materia your party has equipped, which punishes with players for trying to combo-wombo their way out of the fight. However, that's not even the worst bit. Remember how I said before that the battle takes place underwater? Well, it turns out that air and being able to breathe is still a pretty big deal for the people of Gaia, meaning that you only have 20 minutes to take this beast down. The stress this caused players young and old was immense, and sure, you could negate this by equipping the underwater materia, but that wasn't exactly highlighted, was it? This meant that this experience was taking on a beast the size of a house with an immense health pool underwater with a time limit. Woof. Number 4. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? These words will likely be burned into your mind after even the shortest spell with Majora's Mask, as this is a title unlike anything else in the Legend of Zelda series. Here you have just 3 days in order to stop the moon itself from crashing down on top of Clock Town, and as this is nowhere near enough time to do so, you'll need to reset the clock again and again, chipping away at quests and learning new information to aid you on your final mission. However, it's not just a time limit that's here to challenge the player, but what that time frame means for the characters within the narrative, because you can take part in numerous side quests, earning rewards and masks for your trouble, but things always end the same way. After 3 days, you'll undo these actions and try something else, and this can result in truly heartbreaking moments, such as the tale between the two lovers who only reunite mere moments before the moon hits. It's utterly heartbreaking to say the least, and there is no greater expression of the ravages of time than by seeing what it can take away. Brutal. Number 3. Fallout. 150 days to save your vault. When you first call out of your respective high-tech vaults and into the irradiated expanses of the wasteland in the Fallout games, you might rightly be overwhelmed with the amount of options and venues presented to you. From thriving port towns enveloped in fog to underground mines and caves, there's so much to explore and so many horrible things waiting in them to kill you. And yet, unlike every other game in the series, Fallout 1 instilled another sense of terror within the player, that being the looming threat of certain death if the player doesn't return to Vault 13 with a new water purification chip within 150 days. Now, this might sound like a lot of time to play with, but for a new player, you'll likely be spending a ton of time wandering around looking for scrap and helping the multitude of characters with their issues. Hell, you might even choose to forget this responsibility in favor of these new colorful social connections. After all, they didn't kick you out of your vault and deny you access back in, and you know what? The life above ground could be very enthralling indeed. Still, if you forego this time limit, you'll be witness to a rather horrible ending cinematic. Number 2. Half-Minute Hero. The premise of Half-Minute Hero is one that is so brilliantly simple because it sums up everything in its title. You are a hero and you have but 30 seconds to save the day. Now, normally 30 seconds isn't even enough time to understand what you're meant to be doing, let alone actually get out there and do it. But Half-Minute Hero does a fantastic job of setting up the threat of each episode and making the gameplay as simple and as addictive as possible. As either a hero, princess, dark lord, or a knight, you're given 4 very different ways to play, ranging from shoot 'em up to escort mission to kind of light RTS game, but each comes with the caveat of just 30 seconds to play with. This results in a frenzied panic as you dash from screen to screen, trying to battle enemies in the quickest way possible, and creates an unadulterated joy when you stumble across a clock resetting statue, meaning that you can finally continue further on in your quest. It's never a dull moment because there's barely any time to breathe, let alone for fatigue to set in, and Half-Minute Hero will push you to your limits and then some. And number 1, Pathologic. The Pathologic series is, to be frank, utterly insane. Everything about this psychological horror series just drips with a sense of discomfort. The graphics are angular and awkward, as is the motion of the avatars in the game, and every single person you meet speaks with this performative twang on subjects about life and death, which makes the entire experience feel, well, utterly surreal. And that's before you even take into consideration how complex the gameplay actually is. You're tasked with investigating a man who claims to be hundreds of years old, but it's not as simple as just rocking up to his house with a pen and paper because he's dead. However, solving the mystery of his murder is made all the harder when it's made clear that time itself in this game is utterly brutal. If you accidentally oversleep, head to the wrong area at the wrong time, or hell, just actually try figuring out how to get around this game's awful combat mechanics, characters with important information can and will die, also spreading a sickness to others, meaning that the main quest can't actually be completed. Sometimes you're given a small warning in the form of a play that the character can watch each and every night, which details some upcoming events. But again, this time manipulation foreshadowing, God, it will make your brain ache. If you're looking for a deeply rich lore wrapped in a confusing time-based narrative, then Pathologic is definitely the series for you. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video games that use time itself against you. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. And if you want to chat to me and spend some time chatting to the egg daddy that is Jules Gill, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can catch me live streaming on my personal video game channel, Live and Let's Dice, where I do stuff like playing through Fallout New Vegas with a ton of mods at the moment, and we do D&D sessions as well. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. We detailed today a lot about the ravages of time, but you know what, my friend? Please do not let that existential crisis mount up on you, because you are here to have a good time. You have one chance at this world, so let's not waste it by worrying about what might be, and instead actually get out there and live. You deserve love, happiness, and success, and never waste any time thinking that you don't, or letting others put you down, because you are an absolute ledge. Now get out there, make the most of it, and absolutely smash it, you big ledge. As always, I've been Jules. You have indeed been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.